It is hour number 2, live right here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. And what a Thursday it is. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. All the big boys around men's college basketball join the fold today during conference tournament week. At the Big East, we will see UConn take the floor inside Madison Square Garden. The reigning national champs, the winners of the Big 12 in the regular season. Houston will get underway today in its first ever Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. North Carolina, champions of the ACC, in action today in Washington, D.C. The other top 4 seeds in the SEC and the Big Ten, quarterfinal Friday. That's when they enter the ring as well. Conference championship week ticks up a notch on this Thursday. Plenty coming your way here in hour number 2.
Absolutely. And also at the FanDuel Sportsbook, I know we're going to talk a little bit of baseball and have some fun with that, but did you know, people, on next Wednesday's show, we're going to have live updates from the Seoul series between the Dodgers and the Padres, because that first pitch is scheduled for 6:06 a.m. Eastern here. We are under a week away from what I like to say, the unofficial. Exactly. So here's what we want. I'm sure right now the producer is going nuts back on the scenes. How about this? A 6 a.m. edition of the early line? No. Game time decisions. I hear they would love to get that 6 a.m. time slot here. 6 to 8, hand it off to the early line. That's ratings out there,
100%.
people. And in studio, and probably in studio in New York as well. There you go. Yes, I like it.
Listen, whatever they're paying you, it's not enough. You should be in those decisions in meeting rooms to make the big calls. Let's welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience here to hour number 2 of the early line, all across the SportsGrid network, Sirius XM channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. Plenty of Major League Baseball updates coming your way. 2 weeks away from today to the official start date of opening day in MLB. That's March 28th. But the Padres and the Dodgers will play in the Seoul series in South Korea, a 2-game set. And then LA and San Diego will have a couple of spring training games after that as well. Make it make sense at times. I don't think it can. But before we dive into the updates, not good news for Garrett Cole and the Yankees. I do want to highlight what Donnie just said right there. It's not in-game live. It's not the early line MLB semi-opening day edition. It's a game. It is a game, so thus it must be game time decisions. Well done, Donnie. I think we could get that happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. And from what I understand, like when you're under contract, like they can make you work like 60, 70, 80 hours because you don't get any more money for doing any extra shows.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like we shouldn't have to pitch this idea. Like Kevin, as we said, again, Kevin is the host of Game Time Decisions. And by the way, if you haven't checked out that brand new show with Energy at 6 p.m., you ought to check it out tonight because it's going to be popping. I can't wait to see the debut of Game Time Decisions, man. Love those commercials. Yeah, love them.
I thought Joe Ranieri was going to host this new Game Time Decision, 6 a.m. Eastern time. All right, enough of our fun here. Let's bring you the updates around Major League Baseball. We got another one for a third consecutive day on the Yankees ace and reigning AL Cy Young winner, Garrett Cole. Because of what has happened here during spring training, Garrett Cole will be on the shelf for at least the opening month of the 2024 MLB campaign. With the acquisition of Juan Soto in the offseason, the Pinstripes were only 10 cents behind the Astros for that top spot as the American League pennant favorite. This very, very bad news for the Yanks before opening day.
Might be the best pitcher in baseball, and you're having elbow issues already in spring training. And also, the Yankees completely trying to downplay this. But you know how you know it's bad? When they say, all right, we'll have an update in a couple days. We're gathering information. You know what news spreads quickly here? Bad news spreads quickly, right? They're saying, like, you know what? We have it. Let's get some other secondary updates here. And also, it's not like Shaquille O'Neal in the NBA with the Lakers like 20 years ago. It's like, hey, Shaq, you got to get surgery on that toe here. Good. I'll get that October 31st so I can miss the first half of the season and be ready for the second half. You're talking about an elbow here. How many times have we seen this work out? Like, you know what? Precautionary. We're going to opt to do therapy and rehab as opposed to surgery. Garrett Cole comes back. It's July 14th. And a week later, he's down for the season. And you blew 6 months when maybe you could have had that surgery. It's a terrible look for the Yankees right now, who certainly had some eyes on the prize of maybe we could put things together with Juan Soto, stay healthy, and win a pennant here. I don't think that's going to be the case. You can't lose Garrett Cole and replace him at this point. That's devastating news for the Yanks.
Since New York's last World Series in 2009, they haven't even won an American League pennant. There was optimism, as there always is, up in the Bronx this year because of the roster and because of Garrett Cole. Despite the pitching staff outside of Cole not being all that robust, we talked with Craig Mish. Would there be some moves the Yankees would make to fill in those spots? Dylan Cease was floated. Dylan Cease is now in San Diego. Brian Hoke, who covers the Yankees for Major League Baseball, said Garrett Cole has had X-rays and a CT scan on his elbow in addition to an MRI. Now, if you follow sports enough, you know a couple of the big orthopedic surgeons like Dr. Neil Elatrosh, never good when Dr. Neil Elatrosh is included in an update. When it is your pitching elbow, it is always serious. And as Donnie is alluding to, once the news starts to come, it maybe does not stop. We have seen a change in the win total for the Yankees now. It was 92.5. Now it's down by a full win to 91 and a hook. And when you look at Cole last year, the American League Cy Young Award winner, 15-4, 2.63 ERA. That's the updated markets for the Yanks. In the American League East, plus 150. We saw the movement in the American League pennant. We're catching up with those graphics. Yes, we certainly are. So the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner is now no longer the favorite to win this year's AL Cy Young. In fact, not even listed in the top 10 best prices. Corbin Burns, who is now a member of the Baltimore Orioles, although I think we're missing an E in his last name, 8-1 for Corbin Burns to be that American League Cy Young Award winner.
Maybe it's just Mr. Burns here, Ben, at that point. We don't even know who that is at this point. The 8-1 price.
No, but that sounded funny.
It does sound funny there. But if you are looking, I don't even know if we have a graphic on this with all those odds up. But by the way, Burns, Castillo, Lopez, Gausman, Skubal, Valdez, Kirby. Where are the mainstays here, Ben? Like, where are the first 4 to 5 names? Like, ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I can see that happening.
Oh,
he's a heavy favorite. Look at that. 8, 850, 850, 9, 10-1, 11-1, 12. You are going to get value in some pitchers that, quite frankly, the everyday person who watches baseball hasn't really heard of yet. Keep an eye on Skubal at a 10-1 price here. A young lefty with wicked stuff here. This is the most wide open Cy Young market I may have ever seen here in either league, Ben, to open the season.
DRS, you remember a couple of months ago when we looked at the NBA Coach of the Year award odds and we didn't really know who was the coach of which team? I think I can give you the top 5. Burns now in Baltimore, Luis Castillo with the Mariners, Pablo Lopez, Minnesota, Kevin Gausman, Toronto, Tariq Skubal in Detroit, Framber Valdez, Houston, George Kirby, Seattle.
Come on. Yeah, there you go. Bang,
Cole Reagans, Kansas City.
Actually, great. Yeah, you're right about that. Kansas City, Gilbert,
Let's go.
Seattle.
Logan Gilbert, Seattle, Mason Rodriguez, Baltimore. More the early line next. Come on.
The Bostonian versus the book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in. This is
the
Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8 dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5 point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you on it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes and they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to, like, 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, like something absurd. And it really just comes down to being amazing, doing everything he's doing. Like, I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
Always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I mean, we're just putting fish grease onto a stove right now with the first topic that we're going to ask our sports professor, Rick Horrow, live right here on a Thursday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. I am Ben, he is Donnie, and that is Rick Horrow. Watch your step. He's about to drop some knowledge. Our sports professor joins us on the SportsGrid network. Rick, great to see your face once again. Missed you in Florida last weekend, buddy. I tried to hold a spot for our tea time. You didn't make it.
Yeah, there must have been some sunspot that interrupted my cell phone service because I didn't get that call. I didn't get that text.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's an interesting concept because when you know somebody's out of town, you're free to invite them because you know they ain't showing up. And he knew that I was emceeing the 87th annual Maxwell Gala in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame. It was wonderful. I followed many times on the stage the voice of God, Ben Stevens, who regaled in the last 700 Maxwell winners, beginning in 1320 to date. And it was wonderful. I don't know. You read it, so you must know it. Do you remember who won the Maxwell in 1947, Ben Stevens? No. Of course.
1947. No. It was probably a player from Army. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
If I had to.
Those were the only guys who were allowed. Guys who were allowed to play. But in all seriousness, the Maxwell Awards were fantastic. Michael Penix is a superstar on and off the field. Kalen DeBoer was to come. He wasn't able to be there because of the weather. But everybody, and by the way, the panels we put together, if I say so myself, were magnificent. And a little shameless promotion, we're going to put this whole content gaggle together and have at least 2, probably 3 specials about the business of college football and the current plan. I don't know if I'm giving anything away. If I am, doesn't matter. Right before the draft, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before the draft. So it increases viewership. So if you want to watch me, and more important, if you want to watch Ben Stevens, tune in right now to have it dropped many times before the draft. How's that?
Anything else, Donnie, we got to ask this guy? I mean, he just kind of did it all.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness.
No, what else you want
out there? But
by the way, while we're talking, the Saudis are spending $2 billion to take over tennis. Just saying.
Ooh. Yeah, we hear we have to ask you about that as well. Oh, we're gonna lead with that. Okay, sounds good. Donnie, I'll probably take this one. I'll take this one. After months of waiting for the leaders of the Grand Slams to come up with a plan to reshape tennis, this is from The Athletic. The leaders of the men's and women's professional tours are attempting to secure $1 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars of investment from Saudi Arabia, and I would assume the Public Investment Fund, that being the PIF, that was always rumored to have a partnership of sorts with the PGA Tour with their backing of Live Golf. We haven't seen anything official yet in golf. What does this mean, Rick Horrow, for your favorite sport of tennis?
Well, I texted a friend who was a top administrator in both tennis and golf about 2 hours ago, and he gave me these kind of stick out, whatever the bug-eyed emoji faces are, that like, here we go again, many, many times. And that means, by the way, that this is not done. But the one thing we absolutely know for sure is they're not running out of money. They will not run out of money. So we can have tennis, we can have golf. They will not run out of money. And the bottom line of all of that means that this will make them sharper, or it'll put them out of business. And again, the problem with men's and women's tennis has always been coordination. I think if you have one common governance, you may have a possibility here of maybe even making it better. I know that's blasphemous right now, but we'll have to see how it shakes out.
Running out of money, Rick, that's typically when you shut down your campaign. And the reason why we're talking campaigns right now is New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers is on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s short list to be his running mate, so a potential vice president run here. 2 questions for you. Can this be feasible and play quarterback in the NFL? And number 2, Rick, how much fundraisers have you already had for Robert F. Kennedy and Aaron Rodgers?
Hey, number two is great. All right. They must not have gotten my cell phone call when I said, goodbye. We're not doing it. I'm not wasting my time. But Aaron Rodgers seems to think that he can do one thing at once, 2 things at once. You know, he can decide vaccine protocol for the entire country. He can be the vice president because, you know, some say they don't do a lot until the president is sick. And then he can also quarterback the Jets. If you have Achilles issues that put him out, then he has more than enough time to be the vice president. I will say that if I'm a Jet fan, I'm thinking this guy last week or last month gave a speech about how you got to be all in. And now he's talking about all in 5 different things. I'm not sure about this. I'll just leave that alone.
It was Aaron Rodgers at the end of the 2023 NFL season back in January that said, quote, anything in this building that we're doing that has nothing to do with winning needs to be assessed. Everything that we do has to have a purpose. The bull crap that has nothing to do with winning has to get out of the building. That is Aaron Rodgers. Rick, I know you are an astute follower of the U.S. Constitution. Is there anything in there that our founding fathers put out that said you can quarterback in the National Football League and also be vice president of the United States?
Article 2.7b says you have to have won 2 NFL Super Bowls in order to be eligible. He needs the second. He needs the second.
That's a good one.
Rick, that's a roast right there. Well done.
He hasn't had the second one. He needs the second one, man. That's it. Once he gets the second one, he's free to run. You heard it here. Harvard Law. You don't get that advice everywhere. The invoice will follow.
We got to get through to that cell phone here and get that knowledge picked up. But by the way, in the Constitution, does it say anywhere that quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins can make a ton of money every single year? Now, you've written a few books here already, Rick. The next book I need from you is analyzing Kirk Cousins' bank account information that we have now, which is incredible. He's been a very good quarterback, but it seems like he's played his hand right each and every time, Rick.
Relative to downside performances during off years. 17.4 right after says college athletes shouldn't be paid because they're students, talks about how you can't really take advantage of the poor NFL teams because they don't know what they're talking about. Don't bid one off against another. That's called leverage. And the only people that are able to have leverage in the NFL are the owners. Not so fast anymore. How about the Giants and the Eagles stealing each other's guys up and down the turnpike? Now we have James Franklin saying that there was tampering because they were talking to him personally as opposed to just through an agent. We haven't heard the end of that, except we've heard the end of Barkley playing in New York. We know that.
That we certainly do. What a great answer to Kirk Cousins and the quarterback question to bring up Saquon Barkley, a running back. But as we look, big money, regardless, Saquon could be, if his deal reaches the excessive cap that it has, the second highest paid running back in the history of the NFL. But Rick, this is March. Conference tournament week in men's college basketball. Last week, we saw conference championship weekend in women's college basketball. A fiasco between South Carolina and LSU in Iowa, led by Caitlin Clark and Kate Morton, win their 3rd consecutive Big Ten tournament title. Every time she steps on the court, there's records. Everything that happens off the court, ticket sales, TV viewership, records there as well. What are you expecting, Rick, for the 2024 Women's NCAA Tournament?
Very quick, pot calling kettle black, asking a question with a question, or answering a question with a question. I'm just commenting on that. The Caitlin Clark issue is, here's my personal experience. I'm going to Memphis for the NCAA round 1. I want to kind of see the SEC teams. I'll be there, I'm sure, after Selection Sunday. But I'm looking to see where she is, because the next week I would much rather go to watch her than anything else. She's amazing for ticket sales. She's amazing for awareness. The LSU kind of slap fest and the players front and center, that is Caitlin Clark's, the residual effect. And I will tell you, after you come back from break, and as you decide who's going to take the next step on this, Caitlin Clark is as important to women's sports as you two are to the future of the network.
I agree with that.
Oh, wow.
The Bostonian versus the book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in, because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too, because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8 dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5 point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you won it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's, can they be focused for 40 minutes? And they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to, like, 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, like something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything that he's doing. Like, I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The early line only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smarty.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Thursday on the early line in hour number 2. The league year around the National Football League in 2024 officially beginning yesterday. It was really the official start of free agency, but with the legal tampering window at noon Eastern on Monday and some illegal tampering we're sure happening before Monday afternoon as well, a lot of moves have been put into action in the NFL. So where has the market moved to keep pace? We will look at that now with the 3 biggest movers after this free agency frenzy in the NFL, with the 3 top prices to win next year's Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. From the beginning of this month of March to where things stand about 2 weeks later at this current juncture. At the start of March, the 49ers were the favorites, a 5-1 number. That's where San Francisco remains. Same for Kansas City, and despite Baltimore adding Derrick Henry, no movement in their number either which way, remains a 9-1 price. Those are the 3 teams, Donnie, around the National Football League that have 3 digits, less than 10-1 to win Super Bowl 59. The Eagles did see their price shortened by $1 after the acquisition of Saquon Barkley, CJ, and some others to bolster up Philly's roster. The Texans shortened by quite a bit, $5 in fact, 25-1 at the beginning of this month, now 20-1, and the Falcons the biggest mover, 45-1 back at the beginning of March and after the acquisition of Kirk Cousins, who was officially introduced in the ATL yesterday, now a 30-1 price, $15 shaved off because of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, quarterbacks obviously rule the roost here in the NFL, and rightfully so. And Atlanta got extremely better here with getting Kirk Cousins. Now, what does that mean? Going from a middling team to a 10-win team and making a playoff run? Well, that possibly could be all it is, but they certainly got better, and I agree with those line movements. But also it feels like we try to equate it to March Madness betting coming up, the top 3 line, right? Yeah. We talk about the Purdue's, the Houstons of the world, and also the UConns of the world where, okay, they're changing a little bit, but really 1, 2, 3. And I agree with what's setting up here. And the reason why the San Francisco 49ers, who right now I don't think are the best team in the NFL, but you have to get to the Super Bowl in order to win an NFL championship and hoist that Lombardi. So they're sitting at that 5-1 price because the NFC isn't nearly as good as what we're projecting from the AFC, which is why you have Kansas City and Baltimore and Buffalo right behind there with the Dallas Cowboys at a 13-1 price. Now, we also are seeing movement, and rightfully so. Teams are making themselves better. Ben just brought up the Philadelphia Eagles. They got better with Saquon Barkley. They got better with CJ on that back end of it here and getting Huff as an outside pass rusher. And teams will change, and that market will fluctuate slightly here. The next step we're going to see some of these teams fluctuate is in the NFL draft, and not because the Kansas City Chiefs picked a running back 32nd overall. You're going to see these numbers just from the bottom feeders here who've gotten their franchise quarterbacks, and then you sort of try to make that adjustment from there. But also, the next big market moves we're going to see, and when I mean big, Ben, maybe $1, maybe 50 cents, that's when the schedule comes out and we go, whoa. The 49ers got 3 straight divisional road games here, and they're playing 7 teams off of a bye. That's when those next numbers are going to change. So we did get some market variance, and rightfully so. Some teams made themselves better, but the front-end targets, the 49ers, Chiefs, and Baltimore Ravens, they held steady, and for good reason.
And Donnie's right with highlighting Kirk Cousins, by the way. A quarterback is going to move the market, whether it's a future price to win a conference, a Super Bowl, a division, a win total, or even on a week-by-week basis. If there's an injury to a quarterback or he gets back into the lineup, a quarterback is going to move the odds way more than any other position, even the most important player at said position around the National Football League. But it is interesting to see the movement for the Houston Texans, by far the biggest movers in the AFC, a team that had optimism after last season's successes when there wasn't really high expectations, with a rookie head coach, rookie quarterback. They win a division, they win a playoff game. Now the Texans will look to build on top of that, as they are at the top of the AFC South, the favorites at plus 150, nearly $1 in front of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Atlanta Falcons, not just the move here, but now an odds-on favorite at minus 110 to win the NFC South as well. And that gap between Dallas and Philadelphia in the NFC East, now only 20 cents, plus 115 for the Cowboys, plus 135 for the Birds. That is also how you shape this market, the moves in other areas, the moves in other markets. I will be intrigued, though, Donnie, to see what those 2 top teams, San Francisco and Kansas City, do. when you are two of the best teams in the National Football League, often on an annual basis, has been the case for both KC and San Francisco in the last 5 NFL seasons. You don't need to make drastic moves, but you can make subtle moves that improve your roster in incremental ways. What does Kansas City need to add? I think we would all say a wide receiver, perhaps, to help Travis Kelce and those other pass catchers for Patrick Mahomes. Mike Williams cut yesterday by the LA Chargers. Health a big consideration. Might Kansas City make some moves in the NFL draft? Now, Xavier Worthy, the speedster out of Texas, set the NFL Combine record a couple of weeks ago with a 4.21 40-yard draft. And what's interesting to me, there's only a few markets out there to bet the NFL draft. The team that selects Xavier Worthy is one of them, and the Chiefs are the pretty hefty favorite. Xavier Worthy was asked, DRS, in Indianapolis by the media, if you could go to any NFL team, where would you go? And he said, well, Tyreek Hill in Kansas City was pretty cool with that Chiefs offense. I model my game after him. It would be interesting if the statement, the odds, do match up for Kansas City making a huge rookie wide receiver addition.
And the good part about that is for Kansas City, who will be drafting last year, that's a luxury pick for them. So if you're saying to yourself, we're pretty complete across the board, what's going to actually help us out right now, be a good influence? It would be a speedy wide receiver that can take the top off of that defense, which is something they haven't had, quite frankly, since they got rid of Tyreek Hill in that trade to the Miami Dolphins. They tried to replicate it with MVS, but it didn't work out all that well, end up cutting him and moving forward. We've also seen this with the Kansas City Chiefs getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the back of the draft as a luxury position, because they technically don't have needs. As long as you have, Kelce coming back in that lineup as a tight end, and also Patrick Mahomes, and the play call is going to be Andy Reid, you're going to be fine regardless of what you have. And if you're drafting that late, you're not really drafting for need, like, oh boy, we really need a guard. No, just take the best player available on that board that can help you in that next season. That's what they're going to do. So that would be certainly an intriguing prospect overall, but not many needs Kansas City actually has, because why? They got Patrick Mahomes. Covers up a lot of those needs, if there are any.
The Bengals have the 4th best price in the AFC, by the way, at 7-1. They added a nice piece in the interior of their D-line yesterday. Sheldon Rankins on a 2-year, $26 million deal. Another big pickup for Cincinnati. There's been some speculation that Justin Jefferson, if things don't go well in Minnesota, might be on the trade market. And would he reunite with his former Bayou Bengals wide receiver teammate, Jamar Chase, just for the regular Cincinnati Bengals in the NFL? I'm not so sure that's going to happen at this moment. What was that? You think it happens?
Listen, no. Is there a rumor out there that they could have both Jamar Chase and also Justin Jefferson? That would be like saying to me right now, sitting down, like, you know what? Kansas City's really in the mix to get Aaron Rodgers at this point. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Whoa. How could they even afford both of those guys on the same football team? And trust me when I say this right now, being a former number 1 wide receiver, there's a reason why you're a number 1 wide receiver. You don't want another quote-unquote number 1 wide receiver coming in there, because it's all high fives at first until the first game in the first quarter, when your boys got 3 targets and you got none. It doesn't work out well, trust me.
Aaron Rodgers in KC, the only way that happens if RFK's campaign headquarters are in Kansas City, Missouri. Super Bowl 59 odds. We did show you the biggest movers. The Bengals are there, 15-1. The Lions and the Cowboys, Dallas barely doing anything. The Lions, a 13-1 number. Same for Dallas. The Bills cut a lot of people. They re-signed Deion Dawkins. Interesting offseason in Buffalo. The Texans made that big move, and the Dolphins at 22-1. Donnie, we talked a lot about the Falcons and the Texans in terms of those big moves and the market looking favorably on what they have done here in the past 3 days in NFL free agency. Does it ultimately change your diagnosis of both of those teams? Are the Texans the runaway favorites in the AFC South? Are the Falcons anything more in your estimation than just the clear frontrunners in the NFC South as well?
I probably need to see a little bit more out of the Texans. Do I think right now they're the best team in the division? I do, because we're taking a look at what we saw to C.J. Stroud and saying, boy, if that was his rookie year, second year in the same system, they keep Bobby Sloak, which was so important there to keep everybody in-house intact, so you hit the ground running in OTAs. But also, we've seen quarterbacks take steps back in the NFL. We've seen quarterbacks that played really well one season and early in their career, maybe get a lot more film work out there on Slowick's offense. You know what C.J. Stroud likes to do, and teams and defensive coordinators, they know how to adapt really well heading into the next season. But for my money, you take a look at the Atlanta Falcons at a 30-1 price, probably trusting them a little bit more. Because why? I do think Indianapolis is a very good head coach, and they'll be an intriguing team this year. You just saw the Titans, who I don't necessarily like them on the season, but they got some talent. And if Levis finds lightning in a bottle, that could work out. And also, it seems like we're throwing away the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point, who had so high expectations coming into the season.
Yeah.
They're going to be a decent quality ball club next year. I just look at that NFC South with the Atlanta Falcons and say, all right, Kirk Cousins opens as the day one starter, and he's the Kirk Cousins we know and love in Minnesota as a good regular season quarterback. I look for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking a step back. I know what I'm getting out of the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. It's not going to be much. So I'm probably willing to take that 30-1 flyer, on the Atlanta Falcons, as opposed to the Houston Texans 20-1 flyer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you look at where things are in the AFC South, it is fascinating. Jacksonville was in that pole position, minus 1,000 favorite. As we got into December, despite then they dropped their five of their final 6 games, allowing that avenue for Houston to take advantage and win the divisional title. Now a full dollar separates Houston's price, plus 150, from Jacksonville's number in the AFC South, plus 250. Our NFL insider here on the SportsGrid Network, Adam Kaplan, joins us next to go all around free agents. Come back.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This
is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to
Penn
find
State's
a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in. This is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8 dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5 point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you won it as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes? And they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to minus 170 price, followed by SGA at plus 250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything he's doing. I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The early line only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
An NFL free agency focus live right here on this Thursday on the early line. The league year officially underway as of yesterday in the National Football League, but we saw the free agency flurries as soon as that legal tampering window started, noon Eastern time to begin this week on a Monday. To get a recap and a roundup on everything, our NFL insider joins us now. It is Adam Kaplan to share his expertise in what he is hearing still around the NFL. Cap, thank you so much for joining us here on this Thursday on SportsGrid.
Guys, good to be with you. Yeah, it's been the first 2 days are always intense because you talk about the legal tampering period. Once the league changed it many years ago, I'm going to say 8 to 10 years ago, they didn't have this window. But once they opened this 2-day window where agents who have players on every NFL team, they could start negotiating, that changed everything. In fact, Ben, when we get to 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, when everything opens, it's sort of anticlimactic because just about all the big names are off the board. The only big name, really, quite frankly, that went yesterday, we were waiting for this one, was Calvin Ridley, surprisingly to Tennessee. But that was it. Now it's sort of a slow drip here and there. It's definitely different than the NBA, much different, but it's super tense for 48 hours.
Yeah, it's now kind of a slower trickle with some names that we are familiar with around the NFL that will be signed in certain places. So, Cap, with all the big-name free agents already having new homes, a guy that's currently in Chicago and we thought had a robust trade market really hasn't had that, and there doesn't seem to be all that many availabilities around the National Football League. Of course, we're talking about Justin Fields, the Bears' first-round pick back in 2021, but with that first overall pick here in 2024, the belief is the Bears are interested in shipping Justin Fields. What are you hearing about those potential landing spots for the Bears quarterback?
Yeah, Ben, he's a backup at this point. I mean, the starting jobs are gone pretty much, and the jobs that would be open are going to be filled by first-round picks. So Justin Fields is, and the Bears, they're just not able to find that landing spot for him. I told Pharrell 2 weeks ago, don't believe what you're hearing about Atlanta. With Justin Fields, it's not accurate. Yes, they talked to the Bears. So did the Steelers. Atlanta was never going to happen because they're running a West Coast offense. Justin Fields, as talented Ben as he is, he's not a precision passer. He doesn't throw with good enough time. He's not accurate enough. And look, the league tells you all you need to know. When a guy this talented is not moved, and I know we're not at the draft yet, when that's kind of a loose deadline, when all these chairs are fit. Joe Flacco last night, in my reporting, $4.5 million fully guaranteed with the Colts, just over $8 million maximum. That was another backup job that went off the board.
Yeah.
There's some backup jobs open, Ben, but that's pretty much it. Again, it's a situation where the Bears knew that he would have some value, but I think they kind of oversold it. The word coming back from the Combine was they don't really have that one team that wants him. And now the asking price, and the word around the league was they would have loved to get a second-round pick. I don't know if they get a 5 now, if and when they trade him.
Cap, let me double down on that question, too, because I think it's fascinating moving forward, because the question has always been, okay, they're going to trade Justin Fields, then they're going to take their quarterback number 1 overall. Is there a market available where now we take a look at Justin Fields where the Bears say, we're not just going to give him away for a 6th or 7th or release him here? Yeah. Is there any way possible they can keep Fields and draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall?
That's not their preference, no matter what kind of information or people put reports out there. That's not really what they want. Their whole idea was it was a priority to move them. But Donnie, on your point, smart general managers understand you just can't give a guy away. He's got major upside as a backup quarterback. He's plenty of starting experience. It's just he has warts as a quarterback. They're concerns. I just outlined them from talking to people who've worked with him or studied his game tape. So it's going to be hard to move him. They're not putting a timeline on. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But the loose deadline around the league is people think it's got to be done by the draft because remember now, right after the draft, he's got the 5th-year option due, which they obviously will decline because he's not going to be the starting quarterback the next season. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes a 1-year deal. And that's why looking at you can't be giving up a 2nd or 3rd round pick for a guy who will only be on your roster as a backup for 1 season.
Yeah, now it's the value that you get in return if you are Chicago to see what trade packages might be out there. So, Cap, let's talk about the moves that have already occurred, those notable free agency moves that we have seen so far. We'll go one by one, and we start at the top with the biggest move on Monday. Kirk Cousins signing with the Atlanta Falcons. 4-year deal worth $180 million. The Falcons now have their new starting quarterback. Cap, how did this deal come together between Cousins and Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta guys and Ben, they made this clear. He was their guy. Again, I shot the Justin Fields stuff down a couple weeks ago. That wasn't going to happen. It's simply because of this. Zach Robinson came from Sean McVay's system. That is the system that Kirk Cousins just played in for 2 years under Kevin O'Connell. That's an old school West Coast offense. This is a great timing scheme for Cousins. Not going to wow you with athleticism. He's an aggressive thrower. We understand he turns 36 in August, come back from a torn Achilles. But they identified their entire offseason. Atlanta wanted this guy, and they got that guy. They have their starting quarterback. It's basically what I'm told is a 3-year structure, $90 million fully guaranteed at signing. So this is the thing. You could cross off quarterback for them. They don't need that guy now. They got Darnell Mooney. I want to mention that, who is one of the best speed receivers for free agency. You pair him up with Drake London. They don't need to take a receiver early. What the Falcons guys need is defense, corners, and edge rushers through this draft.
It's going to be interesting to take a look at how they wind up here, but I like the move for Kirk Cousins going down there. I think they're the best team in the NFC South, but we move over to the AFC and take a look at the AFC North, which is a fantastic division overall. We saw the disaster in Denver with Russell Wilson. He gets released. Now he finds himself with the Steelers. Talk to us here, Cap, about the Steelers and what their prognosis at the quarterback position will be with Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett this year.
Yeah, Donnie, look, they're going to say it's an open competition. Russell Wilson's going to win it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I understand he got benched in Denver. He's maybe not the same quarterback. He still had 26 touchdowns. He's a major upgrade over Kenny Pickett, who had a great offseason last year, but just could not handle the responsibilities of the starting job. He struggled with Matt Canada. I get Canada's fired as their offense coordinator, but what helps either quarterback, quite frankly, is their commitment to the run game. You're not going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. That is the good thing about where Russell Wilson's going here. You got the run game and the defense. It's not going to be all on the quarterback. And you're going to see Russell Wilson here play under control. I believe that to a certain degree, you're going to see that. They're not putting it all on him. When it's all on him, he tries to do too much, Donnie, and you saw that with Denver. So this is a good landing spot for him. It has nothing to do with money. He's got all the money in the world. It was a bargain basement deal for the Steelers. It was kind of a no-brainer. I give the Steelers credit. That was not their, at the Combine, this was not like their target, but once they kind of knew where the Russell Wilson stuff was going and it became available, they kind of shifted their focus, and good for them. And it's going to be better. They're going to be a better football team. Now, the other thing we should mention, the trade of Deontay Johnson, they get Dante Jackson back in return, who's on the final year of his contract. It doesn't mean that they can't look at cornerback. It's still, in fact, I know that they know that they have to still look at cornerback, but it does help them at a problem position. This team, folks, has helped themselves. The Steelers going forward here are a better football team with what's happened here over the last week.
40-1 was the price for the Steelers to win the AFC before free agency began. Now it's a 36-1 number. Still a long number in the AFC, but some positive market movement for Pittsburgh in the last 3 to 4 days, from the notable quarterback moves to the notable running back free agency signings as well. And we start with the top of the market, 3-year, $37.8 million deal between Philadelphia and Saquon Barkley can be up to closer of a max of around $47 million. A lot to invest in the running back position. Why did the Eagles, Cap, decide to do so?
All right, so Ben, this was a big move for them. Howie Roseman and the Eagles had a major high grade on him, on Barkley in 2019 for that draft. Yes, they couldn't get him. They weren't going to trade up to get him, but this is a guy they've always loved. They know him, obviously, same division. I'm told in the structure, it's a 2-year structure, which means that he's pretty much going to be there no matter what happens this season. Ben, he'll be with them through 2 of those 3 years at the very least. He's going to make about $24.5 million over the first 2 seasons, I'm told, and this is a guy they really want to be the focus here of their offense to help out Jalen Hurts. Don't put it all on Hurts. Yeah, they'll pass the ball plenty with Kellen Moore, but they'll be able to get a little bit more better balance. It just, for whatever reason, Ben, Hurts really dropped off after his incredible breakout season in 22. But now they'll have that guy who could handle it. Think about Barkley, Ben. Yes, he had a down year, but let's not forget, as one league source told me, look at the Giants' offensive line and name one guy who would start on the Eagles' offensive line. And maybe, I don't know that Andrew Thomas would. It's subjective. Jordan Mailata is a pretty good left tackle. And that's the big reason. He's going to be with a better offensive line. He's a one cut and go, get upfield guy. Yeah, he might be on the back nine of his career, but he's super explosive. And this is an upgrade over DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, say what you want about the Philadelphia Eagles and how they're lining up on offense. They're certainly surrounding Jalen Hurts with enough talent to say if you had a down season last year, ain't no way you can have a down season with all the talent around you this year. Should be fun to watch you play out. The one thing that we did notice on opening day here in that tampering period, running backs were a hot commodity when entering into this free agency period here, Adam. We were looking at, hey, you know what? Nobody's going to tag anybody. Let's see where the running back market goes, which included Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens. Talk about the Ravens and Henry, and also what's spurring this move in here where running backs flying off the board and getting some pretty good money.
Yeah, Donnie, they tried to get him at the trade deadline last year, so they got their guy. This is actually a really good fit because with Lamar Jackson's explosiveness as a runner and their play-action game, this is great. I mean, this is where I thought he'd go, and he can get volume carries. And this is the thing, though, with Derrick Henry. He's not going to be good with just 10 carries. He needs volume. And they're a team that does not usually have a lot of pass attempts. They're going to have a lot of play action off the RPOs, and this is going to be fun. This is a good fit, and this is a great way for Derrick Henry to end his career with those Baltimore Ravens. And this makes them better because Gus Edwards, by the way, is back with Greg Roman with the Chargers now, who is former OC with the Ravens. Yeah. So Derrick Henry takes over. I'm looking forward to this. This is a good move for them.
So, Cap, you see the odds right there for Baltimore. Since their Super Bowl championship during the 2012 NFL season, they haven't even won an AFC title. They played in their first AFC championship game, of course, this past year, coming up short at home against Kansas City. Is Derrick Henry enough to elevate the Ravens in your mind, second best price to win the AFC this season?
To win, you mean not to win a division? You mean to win the entire the conference?
Yeah,
it's a tough
to get over that hump.
Yeah, that's a tough call, man. I mean, Derrick Henry will help them, but obviously Lamar Jackson's got to be better. I mean, his last game was not good enough. He struggled. Now this is the second year in this system here. This is a brand new system, completely different from Greg Roman's system. Look, Pittsburgh's better with Russell Wilson. There's no question about it. They're better cornerback. Now, Pittsburgh, we should mention, they're really shaky at receiver. Other than George Pickens, they have no depth at all. They have to address that position, and I'm sure they'll do that in the draft. But, overall, don't dismiss Cleveland now. They got to get Deshaun Watson healthy, obviously. But to me, it's got to be Baltimore at the top here. And then, of course, with Cincinnati, Joe Burrow getting healthy. But I would agree. I'd say this much. Baltimore's the absolute favorite. If we're doing futures odds, if we're making our own odds, Baltimore's the obvious favorite there.
Yeah, the favorites to win the division right now for a second consecutive season, plus 105. Cincy not all that far behind, less than $1, around a plus 170 number. Adam Kaplan, our SportsGrid NFL insider. We appreciate the insight as free agency is really ramping up here in the National Football League this week. We will talk very, very soon. We'll talk about who had the best week in free agency up until this point as we end out this second hour on the other side of the break by hearing from you, the people, the public. We'll do that next to end out hour 2 here on the Early Line.
The Bostonian versus the book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
This
is the Penn State
rule. Be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Kentucky on the road as a 7-8 point dog, beat Tennessee by 4. North Carolina as a 5.5 point underdog, beat Duke on the road.
I took Kentucky plus the points. I think you on there as well. I even said I wouldn't be shocked if they won it. I'm not shocked. They're just that good. It's can they be focused for 40 minutes, and they actually played, I guess you would call it somewhat defense.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How about this? Nikola Jokic, heavy favorite here to -170 price, followed by SGA at +250, and Luka Doncic at a 7-1 price.
It would require a whole lot from Luka to, like, 15 of the next 20 games he has to have triple doubles, like something absurd. And it really just comes down to Jokic being amazing, doing everything he's doing. Like, I hate to say it, but he's probably had this locked up the second Embiid was announced out.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
Always heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Closing out this second hour, live right here on a Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside. We love to hear from the people at the end of this second hour. And believe you me, hour 3 dedicated to conference tournament week. But hour 2 was really a recap, a roundup to look at all the NFL free agency signings that we have seen over the last 72 hours with the league year officially started yesterday around 4 p.m. Eastern time. We asked who had the best week. How about who had the worst? That was the question in Fade the Public. At SportsGrid TV on Twitter, who has had the worst offseason so far? We gave you 3 teams to pick from, just 3 teams, not individual players, just 3 teams, and then an other. If you selected other, we asked for a reply. Thankfully, not many people selected other because there are no replies on the Fade the Public poll. But most people right now, nearly 68% of the public, going with the Dallas Cowboys, saying the Cowboys have had the worst offseason to this point.
Yeah, we talked some good NFL action here in the penultimate hour of the show. So in hour number 3, we'll certainly double down on who had the worst offseason by far. But I got to tell you this, man. I voted for other. And I don't even know why I voted for other at this point, because usually it is the Cowboys and the Panthers and the Jets. So I just wanted to vote other and not respond to which team it was. So shout out to 3.1%, just like me. We voted, nice. And yeah, we don't care. We're not going to write anything down either, Ben. So take that.
Is DRS maybe all 3.1% of that? Now, I also am slightly fading the public. I went with the Carolina Panthers because I don't really have any idea what they are doing, and I think the Panthers are going to be in for a very brutal offseason and season to come. Oh, by the way, they don't have a first-round pick. That's Chicago's at first overall to try to add to a team that really struggled and had the worst record in the National Football League a year ago. And my whole point is, what is the point of having David Tepper and his temperamental behavior if you're not going to have the money in the big pocket to back it up? We'll keep it rolling into hour number 3 when that starts in less than a minute.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.